Hello everyone. Let us continue our discussion on machine learning. In the last session, we have had some introduction on machine learning, and we talked about different types of learning, and we had a detailed discussion on supervised learning. So, in supervised learning, you have seen that in the data set we have a set of input features and we have the target or the level, that is the output of the data as well in the training set. So our approach in supervised learning is mainly that we take the training set, we try to predict the output, and then we compare the predicted output with the actual output, and based on that how close the prediction is to the actual one, the algorithm is modified or the model is getting enhanced, and then that algorithm or the model is implemented on some unknown test data set. So that was supervised learning. But in unsupervised learning, the main thing is that we don't have the output data in our data set. So it's the unlabeled data of unknown structure. So that is what we get, that we don't have the output value, so we cannot predict any output value and then compare. That process cannot be done. So in case of this unlabeled data, we generally go for unsupervised learning. So here we try to explore the structure of the data to extract meaningful information. So you understand that as we have only a set of features and not the output, so it is not possible that we predict some output and compare in case of training. So what we try to do here, that we try to understand the data set and try to get some meaningful information from the data set. That is the main purpose of unsupervised learning. There are three main categories of unsupervised learning. They are clustering, association, and dimensionality reduction. Dimensionality reduction techniques we have already covered as part of data pre-processing. So I think that time also I told you that dimensionality reduction is also referred as some unsupervised learning, because in dimensionality reduction we actually understand the data, learn the data, and try to get more meaningful information from the data set. So that's why it is a part of unsupervised learning also. Okay. So the first category of unsupervised learning that we are going to discuss is clustering. So from the term you can understand that here we are trying to cluster the data set. So based on the different features, the similar kind of data we can cluster together and we can make some different clusters. So from the figure you can understand that in the x-axis and y-axis I have plotted x1 versus x2, and based on the output I have made some three clusters. Means from the data set I have tried to get some three groups of data. So maybe group 1, group 2, and group 3. So from this I want to have some conclusion that okay, whatever data was supplied, they are of these three categories, this 1, 2, and 3. So whenever a new data is coming, then if it is in this particular circular area, then I can say that this data is part of this group. Now if another data set is coming where it falls in here, so I can say that that new data is part of this group. So here with the data set as part of training data, we have created these three groups and tried to make some clustering of the data. So that is the purpose of this clustering algorithms. So here we have some points written. So used for organizing information into meaningful clusters or subgroups without any prior knowledge of its structure. So it's not important that I know the structure, but I'm just trying to make the grouping based on some similar features. Each cluster is a group of similar objects that is different to objects of the other clusters, of course. So as they are close, so the data sets which are close with each other, we are forming a different group with them. So these are the common applications of these clustering algorithms. This is customer segmentation, enhanced search engine, DNA analysis, etc. Okay, so maybe suppose in the class there are some 200 students. If I have to make some groups, then what I can do, I can ask for all the features or characteristics of the students, and based on that, okay, these are the common features of the students, then I can make some 5 groups. And when a new student is coming, then I may compare that his or her features are matching with which group, then I can place the student in that particular group. So that's kind of a clustering technique. So there are many algorithms available. Some of the very important ones are the k-means, hierarchical clustering, density based clustering, etc. We'll try to discuss some of them in the later sessions. Okay, now is dimensionality reduction. You understand that we try to reduce the dimensions to get some more meaningful data and to have some easy processing. So dimensionality reduction we have already covered, so I will not go in the explanation. Next comes association. Okay, so it is another kind of unsupervised learning. So here we try to find some pattern in the data, so that we can understand that which are the data points who occur frequently. So the best example to discuss this is market basket analysis. Is a very common and important analysis is being done mainly in the supermarkets, right? What they try to understand, that when a person is suppose buying milk, then with milk what is the next item he or she buys very frequently. Suppose whenever we buy milk, we are going for some health drink, and we are going for some bread and then butter, like that. So if most customers are doing the same way, same pattern, then what the supermarkets decide, that they will keep the items in that order, so that when I am buying some items in the supermarket, then whenever I am buying a bread, maybe most of the time I will look for butter as well. So if that is placed just beside bread, then it is usually it is convenient for me to pick up that item, right? Because then I will not forget, and the selling of that item will also be increased. So in case of supermarkets, you will also understand that is very important, that how they place the items, most of the times the chocolates and some attractive items for children, those are kept just in front of the counter. So what happens, that whenever the children are there with the parents in time of billing, so they just see that item, and they insist that they want to buy that item. So it's kind of an analysis is being done nowadays with the help of machine learning. So the purpose of this learning is that we are collecting the data set, then we are trying to understand what is the relationship between the features, how they are closely associated with each other. So that is one kind of association that we are trying to find, and that is the unsupervised learning. So these are the applications I already told you, that market basket analysis, some medical diagnosis, maybe that if these are the symptoms, these symptoms are coming one by other, then that is the disease for most of the people. So if I have that data, then whenever I am having a patient, suppose the doctor is having that patient with all these symptoms, then he or she can understand that, okay, if these 2 symptoms are there, then maybe this third thing will also happen to that patient, and they can take some preventive actions. So these are some very important applications of association, and few algorithms are also available, a priori, eclat, epigrowth, etc., and we'll try to discuss some of them in the coming sessions. Okay, so we have covered unsupervised learning. So you understand that we have some unlabeled data, and our main purpose is to get some meaningful information from the data we have. So now we are moving to another category of machine learning, that is called semi-supervised. So from the name you understand that it's kind of a midpoint of supervised and unsupervised learning. So both of the features are present here. So what is that? So here mainly the purpose of this learning is to handle data where it is a mixed of labeled and unlabeled data. So we told earlier that when we have labeled data, then we go for supervised learning. When we have unlabeled data, we go for unsupervised learning. But here sometimes we have some data set where there are few of the data which are having the labels and most of the data are not having the labels. Then what should be our approach? So in those cases, actually semi supervised learning comes into picture. So what they do mainly, these label data are considered first. So they are being trained with those label data, and based on those label data they generate some predictions and they try to improve the model, and then the rest of the data they take those at the testing data, and based on the model that is generated from the label data, the output is predicted for those data set where the label data was not present. So now there are, suppose there are total 100 records and there were some 20 records where we are having the output. So first we execute the algorithm on those 20 records and the algorithm is getting enhanced and now it is matching the predicted value with the actual value, and then the rest of the data is used, rest of the training data, maybe suppose I have taken some 80 records at the training data, so 20 at the labeled one, so I have already used them, and then the rest of the 60 we use them and we generate the output for them. So now I can say that total 80 records are having labels. Maybe those, for those 60 I have just predicted, I don't know the actual output, but if we assume that okay, that predicted value is the actual value, close to actual value, then I take those 80 records as the label data and we execute the algorithm again, and it tries to predict the output for rest of the data set. And we have seen that in this approach we get very close result to the actual one. Okay, so there are many approaches, different approaches that can be taken in semi supervised learning. Those are pseudo labeling, ladder network, generative adversarial network. Okay, so we'll discuss on this simple one, that is the pseudo labeling. So here it is, the model is trained with label data. So the data set where the label was present, first we train the model with those data, predict outputs for unlabeled test set, that I told you that I have some other data set where the label is not present. So now the model is executed on this unlabeled data set and output is predicted. Concatenate the training levels with the test set pseudo labels. So now that training levels and the next set that we have already generated the predicted values, so those are made together, and now this algorithm is executed again on the entire set. So concatenate the features of the training set with the features of the test set. Okay, so we have just concatenated entire thing as if they all are labeled now. Finally train the model in the same way again with the new training data set. So now I am training the model with the new set. Okay, the new set means we had the label data already present, and for some of the records we have generated the label data. So now again I take entire set as the training set and we improve the model gradually. Okay, so actually there can be many iterations and we have to do many experiments to enhance our models, but that is the overall approach of semi supervised learning. So in summary we can say that in semi supervised learning we take the data set having only the label data, we train our model, and then for rest of the data where label was not present we generate, we predict output for that, and then again we take the entire set out as our training set and we again train the model, and in that way it grows gradually and then it can predict output for other data sets not having the labels. So that is semi supervised learning. Okay, now the another type of machine learning, that is deep learning. So from the diagram you can understand that it's kind of a multiple layer learning. Okay, and it is here it is written neurons, so it is like our brain this network of neurons is designed as per our brain only in deep learning. So here there is the first layer, the blue colors, that is called the input layer. Here actually the raw data is fed to the system, and output neuron are the green layer you can see. So it's from there we get the predicted output value, and in between we have multiple layers, means we can, in these hidden neurons you can see this orange layer, we can have one layer or we can have multiple layers, and from these blue layers the input is fed to this all these hidden layers. Okay, as I told you that these hidden layers, there can be one hidden layer, there can be multiple hidden layers. So in these hidden layers the data is getting processed many times with many logic and algorithms, and then it is pushed to the output layer where the prediction is generated. Okay, so it's a subfield of machine learning. It uses a hierarchical structure. I told you that it is input layer, then one or many hidden layers, and then the output layer. This architecture allows to tackle the data analysis in a non-linear way. So actually we can have, if you just see the picture again, you can see that from one node there are many edges coming to another node. So it's can be, we can generate new functions where we are taking multiple inputs. So it can be processed in non-linear way. Okay, raw data is taken in the input layer as I told you and processed in the hidden layer. So hidden layers can be multiple, so depending on the requirement of processing, the complexity of processing, there can be many hidden layers where there are a lot of non-linear functions are working on the data and many levels of processing, many changes, and then it finally goes to the final layer. Prediction is generated from the final layer. Then there is another important term, that is back propagation. So when the output is generated from the final layer, that predicted output, then it can be compared with actual output, and based on the difference we find, maybe we have to fine tune the logic written inside the hidden layers, because you understand hidden layer is the kind of black box where actually the data is getting processed. So based on the outcome and the actual outcome and the predicted outcome, the model can be learned. So that is called the back propagation. So first of all, the input data, from input it is going to the hidden layer. So this is the input layer, data is moved here, processing is done, and then after all the hidden layers, finally it goes to the final output layer where the predictions are generated. Then this prediction is compared with the actual output, and based on the differences we find, there is some back propagation of information, so that these layers, the logic used in these layers, the constants, the values, etc. used in these layers can be modified so that the outcome we generate can be close to the actual one. So first, initially maybe there is some logic is written, the data is here, outcome, it is compared with the actual output, and then the difference or any change required, that is back propagated to these layers so that they change themselves, the model is learned again, and again that data is processed and the outcome is generated, and this way the model is well trained. Okay, so that is deep learning. This is some topic which needs a lot of discussion, so if time permits we'll go to deep learning as well. Okay, the next branch, that is called reinforcement learning, is very important one. There are a few key terms about it, so it is important that first we understand what are the terms. Okay, so first one is agent. It is nothing but an algorithm or some logic that is getting executed. Then there is environment. So environment is where the agent works, means actually the data set that is provided or the path how to process the data, everything is the environment where the algorithm is working. Then comes state. It is the current situation of the agent. Okay, so where it is, where the algorithm is in the currently, that is the state of that agent. Then comes policy. that is method to map agent's state to actions, means from one state to another, how the algorithm or the agent is proceeding, that is the policy, means the method that is written, and based on that the algorithm should proceed. And then comes the reward means the agent gets when it does something, can be positive or negative, means when the agent moves from one state to another state, then that state can be a good one or bad one. So if the state is good, then it gets positive reward, if it is bad, it gets negative reward. So these are some terms which are important. Then we are trying to explain in brief what is reinforcement learning. Okay, so it's a special type of machine learning, and it can be a type of deep learning as well, because there is sometimes we hear the term deep reinforcement learning. So some people refer it as a branch of deep learning, and but it can be without deep learning also, it can be a machine learning part as well. Okay, so training of machine learning models to make a sequence of decisions. So here some environment is given to some algorithm or agent, and it has to take some decisions so that some task is accomplished, but in the best way, and it gets the maximum rewards. So here it is like through trial and error methods, the algorithm needs to maximize the reward. Okay, so it's kind of you will understand better way that it's kind of a game. There are some mobile games you play very frequently, that there are some hurdles, maybe that one person or one animal has to move through some paths, and there are a lot of problems, they are hidden, or it may eat the person, or it may reduce its strength, something like that, right? And ultimately you have to reach some destination. So how do you play the games? That when you start a game, then what happens, that as you are new, so you fail, and then you gradually you understand, you learn that how to play the game, and maybe after a few efforts you can reach up to 50%, you can reach up to 70%, and ultimately maybe you reach 100% with some reward points, right? There are some gold or some coins are given in the path if you go to the with the right track, some optimum path. So once you reach the end, then in the next iterations, what your tendency is to get maximum rewards, maybe that if you can collect that, then your points are more. So what you do generally when you are playing those types of games, that you try in the continuous iterations, as now you get more and more familiar, you know that which path you should follow, or which are the ways you should go from one point to another. So there are two purposes you have, that first you have to reach the destination, and you have to reach in the optimal path so that your reward is maximum, right? So that is the same thing which happens in reinforcement learning. So here the purpose of this algorithm is to learn from trial and error. So means no one is giving it that okay, this is the exact set of rules, that this is the exact set of path that you have to follow, but lot of possible ways are there, you can go to those paths, but your purpose is, first of all, you have to complete the task, means you have to reach your destination, and you have to maximize the reward. So these algorithms also work like you, the same way as you do trial and error maximum times, it also does the same thing, and with lot of trials it achieves that. Means as you can, if you can give lot of if the infrastructure is good, then high processing and memory etc are given, then those algorithms can reach actually the best possible way. So that is the flavor of reinforcement learning, because sometimes we don't have that, that really we don't have that exact path to run the algorithm to achieve that. So in those cases, this trial and error is the only way, right? So that's how these algorithms actually are getting executed, but there are lot of challenges. First one is preparing the simulation environment. So someone prepares the games for you, so it is also the same thing, like that the entire simulation needs to be prepared for training. So start from the starting point to the ending point, all types of possible situations, and then what is the reward and what is the negative reward, penalty you can say, or where it will be lost and how many times it can do the tries, all possible. So everything, this simulation environment is very important, right? So if someone wants to prepare you to play a game, then that environment needs to be prepared in such a way so that when in the real environment you are going to place, and then you should be very familiar with everything. So that's one challenge. Then transferring the model from training to real environment, so that's another important thing. You will understand with a better example that autonomous cars, those nowadays those are very hot topic and very challenging one also. So once the car is get ready for autonomous driving, then it needs to be executed in some training environment, that okay, this can be the road situation, these are the signaling, these are the types of that there can be holes, there can be this people can be there on the road, or there can be cars, all types of situations it should learn. But that is again the training environment. But when we put that car in the real environment, real road the car is running, then there can be some unforeseen situations as well. So that is the difficulty. Okay, so that is one thing. And then scaling and tweaking the neural network, controlling the agent is another challenge. So when this reinforcement learning is done in the neural network, then again is actually this deep learning methodology, so there are a lot of hidden layers, it has a lot of complexity. So doing entire thing for the reinforcement learning is always the challenge. And rewards and penalties, so these are the only way of communication, right? So that you will understand that when you are playing the game, as you are proceeding, the only thing you are getting is how many rewards or penalties you are getting. So from that way only you understand that okay, I am not going to the correct way or correct methodology I am following. But it is not always that easy to make you understand that okay, these are the rewards, so you have to follow that path only. So sometimes you will say that few of your friends are very much good in those games, but not all, because only giving reward and penalties cannot teach everything. So that's one problem with this type of reinforcement learning. And then it may lead to catastrophic forgetting. What is that? Catastrophic forgetting means that when the algorithm is learning some new things, then it is possible that it is forgetting some old things. So suppose in the training environment you are learning the game, so it's a very long one, so you have learned something in the earlier phases, then when you are reaching the destination you have learned many new things, and it's possible that you forgot the things that you learned in the initial phases. So actually in the test environment when you are going to run, you may forget those things. So that is one problem. And then reaching local optimum, so that is also important, that you are getting reward. So maybe you are moving through many paths and you are getting lot of reward, but the ultimate purpose is to reach the goal, the destination. The algorithm may be in such a way it is running that it is gaining lot of reward, but it is not reaching the destination. So that will also not solve our purpose. So those two things are important at the same time, right? And then maximizing rewards and completing tasks. So it is the challenge that we maximize the reward and at the same time we are completing the task, right? So I told you that the main purpose is I have to reach the destination and I have to maximize the reward count. So doing the two things simultaneously means learning from the simulation and accomplishing both the things sometimes becomes challenge for reinforcement learning. Okay, so fine. So that is the challenges, but reinforcement learning is, it's the very important type of machine learning branch and deep learning branch as well, because in reality we don't have that much all the things ready in our hand, or we have all the path or all the way. We don't know most of the time what we have. Maybe we have some data set, and we know that what are the possible ways to achieve this, but we don't have the exact path. So in those cases, those situations, reinforcement learning comes into picture, and it actually makes the things complete, that okay, we can achieve something with the best possible way. So that can be done through reinforcement learning only. So now we have covered the main branches of machine learning. We have discussed about supervised learning, unsupervised learning, semi-supervised learning, deep learning, and reinforcement learning. In the next sessions, we'll get into some specific algorithms as part of machine learning. Okay, so hope you understood those things. Thank you for now.